What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline, and down the rabbit hole we go. It's been wild since I started this channel. I haven't started that long ago and still haven't made that many videos and haven't got that many views or subscribers. But of the views and comments and things like that that I've been getting, I've been learning so much myself. And it's been fun. It's been scary. It's taken twists and turns that I did not anticipate. I simply thought this was going to be a deep exploration of a lot of these NDEs that are presenting overall super positive and happy messages about this life being a school and it teaching us lessons. And now it seems that because of so many of you guys watching and commenting, I'm been turned into all these other avenues, which I'm super grateful for because I want to know the truth. But they're not as pleasant and they're not as simplistic as I thought it was, or maybe I wanted to believe it was. And here we go down another twist and turn in the road. That this one was presented to me from Salberg1. That is the username. So thank you so much if you are watching this. And he recommended to me that I check out William Buhlman. Now, I didn't know who William Buhlman was or is. I'd never heard of him before. And so I just started searching for him. And I came across this really cool video of him giving a keynote speech at the Monroe Institute. That this is an institute that I was made aware of about a year ago, an institute that I plan to go to at some point in the near future. And I've also done a video featuring Bob Monroe, who is the founder of the Monroe Institute. So it's just crazy how everything seems to be coming together on this quest. But there is a keynote speech that I listened to portions of it from the Monroe Institute, in fact, and I wanted to share parts of it because as I'm learning about him, I'm like, man, this guy seems like he's got some very interesting answers, and some of it coincides with some of the stuff from the Gnostics, which is something that I've also just recently learned about. Never knew anything about it until a few weeks ago, which is crazy. Some of it coincides with the stuff that Bob Monroe was saying from the Monroe Institute. And then there's just some really cool stuff that he says that I've always felt deep down resonated with me. And I just loved it. And I wanted to highlight it about beliefs and belief systems, which was just so cool. So we're going to get into all that. First of all, if you guys are not familiar with William Buhlman, I did bring up this biography just for you guys and for myself, to be honest, as I'm new to him, but very, very fascinating guy. So he's a best-selling author, lecturer, and leading teacher of out-of-body experiences, known for decades of personal exploration and instruction in astral projection and consciousness studies. With more than 40 years of firsthand out-of-body experiences, Buhlman has become one of the most prominent modern educators on the subject, teaching workshops and courses at the Monroe Institute and around the world. His books, including Adventures Beyond the Body, I need to check these books out, The Secret of the Soul, and Adventures in the Afterlife, explore techniques for consciously leaving the body, the nature of consciousness, and potential spiritual insights gained from these experiences. Through lectures, surveys of thousands of participants, and training programs, that incorporate meditation, visualization, and hypnosis, Buhlman teaches practical methods for inducing OBEs and using them as tools for personal growth, spiritual discovery, and exploration of the afterlife. And I think essentially from what I'm seeing so far, again, I've done very cursory research up till now, but it seems like a lot of the insights and information that he has is on the, I think he says dozens or thousands or hundreds. I don't remember, but he's had like a lot of these experiences. Probably, I think it's like in the thousands. I think he's done tons of these out-of-body experiences and explorations. And through that, he's gained a lot of insights about the nature of reality and the nature of consciousness in particular. So really, really cool. Once again, shout out to what was it again? Salberg1 in the comments, who put me onto this information. Very, very interesting. So let's get into the mix. I've got 4 really, really cool excerpts that I want to share with you guys. First thing here, and I thought this was a very fascinating take. He says, everything I've learned is flawed. And what he's meaning here is everything we learn in the material world, there's some tinge to it. There's some flaw to it. And this resonates with me because obviously everything that we're gathering in, whether it's through our senses or through the mind, probably has a tinge of bias or flaw, or and because naturally our tools here are limited and are flawed inherently. I mean, we all know that. We have sayings that say, hey, we're only human, meaning the implication is that we're imperfect by design and we're imperfect naturally. And I thought this was so cool because not only is it most definitely true, but I think we lose sight of that sometimes. And this is shown when we get into heated debates with each other. We become very stubborn and become very opinionated, especially on some of these hot button issues that seem to divide us endlessly and endlessly and endlessly. So I love this notion. He's going to explain better why we should come to reckoning, come to an understanding of this notion that, look, no matter how certain we feel about a particular thing, everything we're learning here is flawed just by nature of our bodies and our minds.
And one of the things I quickly learned is that everything that I had ever learned throughout my entire life was flawed to the point of false. Everything. All the beliefs, all the theories, almost everything was flawed. Think about this. Even the very basis of our society. What is the basis of our entire civilization? And that is that we're human beings. Isn't that the true basis? We're physical human beings. And our societies throughout time have been built on this premise. But what I quickly discovered back in even the early 70s is that I'm not a human being. You are not a human being. A human, this is a temporary biological vehicle of consciousness we're using that is needed to explore, experience the physical world. Here's what's wild. We have another energy body on every level of the universe. Right now, you are existing. You are operating. You are absolutely functional, fully functional in many different dimensions because they're all interrelated.
This idea of us having energy bodies, I think a lot of people across the spectrum of, depending on your various particular spiritual beliefs, but I think a lot of people acknowledge that, yes, we have energy bodies, and these energy bodies, even as described in NDEs, continue on, and it feels like a physical body, and sometimes it can change shape or whatever. This is discussed in a lot of books like Journey of the Souls, etc. So I think that is readily acknowledged by a lot of folks in this realm, in this line of thinking. So that makes sense. I do think it was, I've heard this as well too, that instead of the idea of past lives, it's more parallel lives. Like we're having simultaneous existences constantly. So I think that notion that he's saying there falls in line with that idea. But anyways, I thought that was really cool. That main takeaway is everything we've learned is flawed. I think if we just all have that mindset, I mean, obviously myself included, not excluding myself, I think the world would overall be so much better and so much more harmonious. But I'm starting to wonder if the world is not in harmony, and we do tend to argue and divide and bicker and disagree and be stubborn by design. Is that by design, by the biology of our bodies and the way we're set up and the way the physical world has been created or whatever, come to existence, however you want to put it? I don't know, but that's a side note. But anyways, I think that's really interesting to bear that in mind. Everything we've learned is flawed, and then we can approach things from a open stance instead of, okay, well, I've made my mind up here. Now I'm going to try and convince you why my perspective is right, as opposed to things being a mutual exploration. And I really try to do my best, for example, on this channel, to be open-minded and be in an exploratory phase always, hopefully as evidenced by the current twists and turns that this channel is taking and undergoing right now. Okay, let's move on. Now, another huge point. Love this so much because I felt this for so long. I've always felt like belief systems and religions in general just seemed inherently flawed on a fundamental basis, because they lock you in to a set of, whether it's beliefs, rituals, and fundamentals that you just cannot escape from. And he literally describes it as this. I think in the next clip, he calls it, you put yourself in a box, and then you have to operate within that box, within those walls, within those dimensions. You can't really pass out. Otherwise, now you're leaving the realm of that particular religious faith. Like, that's kind of wild to me, because if you also start from the premise that everything we learn is flawed, we should try our best to keep learning and keep exploring on a continual basis, as opposed to accepting, a certain dogma and then sticking to it, and then instead just trying to argue our way around any sort of disagreements to that faith and just say, no, but it's right because of this, or let me find another way to argue that point. It's like, why don't we just all mutually join together and explore as one, and maybe say, hey, we don't have to have a set adherence to one particular belief system or idea. But anyways, let's listen to what William Buhlman has to say. He says this much better than I.
And we have to acknowledge, we have to begin to dig deep within ourselves and begin to explore exactly where we come from and what we continue to believe. Because one of the most shocking things I've learned in my 41 years now, I've been having out-of-body experiences. For 20 years, I've been teaching extensively about it. And one of the first things I learned is that I had to let go of everything I had learned. When I begin a workshop, that's the first thing I say. You have to start looking at your own beliefs critically, because you, us, we create our own blocks by what we choose to believe. And it's a tough one, because when you give up these beliefs that we cling to so desperately, you feel like you're entering a void, and it's uncomfortable. You have to stretch. You have to go, whereas start like no man has gone beyond. It's scary. You have to give up all the stuff that you carry with you. And that's one of the keys to, I feel, the exploration of consciousness, and one that's seldom talked about because it's a sensitive subject. This is not a matter of what's right and what's wrong, what's good and bad. It's a matter of clearing the path for yourself.
There it is, clearing the path for yourself. Again, the beliefs are the blockages, and you need to clear that path. And he mentions it's a sensitive subject, having to let go of a lot of these beliefs. And it's not that just that it's uncomfortable. I think ego plays a large part. I mean, if you've been regurgitating a set message for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of your entire life, and now you're expected to roll that back, not only is it uncomfortable, but I think a big part of what keeps people stagnant and keeps people locked into particular belief systems and still wanting to cling to those belief systems being correct is this idea of ego. It's like, what the heck was I doing for all that time? It's too painful to my ego or to somebody's ego to now admit that everything I thought or felt for a long time is now incorrect. I mean, it's the same for me. It's same for all of us. So I think that's also another element at play. He didn't mention that specifically, but I have to believe that that plays its role as well. Here's that excerpt that I mentioned where he's talking about these belief systems essentially boxing ourselves in. We imprison ourselves within these beliefs, within these dogmas, sometimes that we're raised in or sometimes that we adopt later in life as adults, whatnot. So check this out.
As many of groups and individuals are exploring consciousness, they fail to see that they are exploring consciousness in a box.
I just kind of laughed there because he said exploring consciousness. Maybe I think what he's intending to say there is they think they're exploring, but they're not really doing it. I probably fall into that category. I guess about when I started my whole quest with near-death experiences, I thought, boom, I'd locked into maybe I have still, right? I don't know, because we're still figuring all this stuff out, and a lot of these new people that I've discovered and stumbled upon, it's really, I'm still really in shock because I was feeling so good about everything that I was learning. It seemed like such a beautiful, uplifting message, period, and that was it. But yeah, I assume he's referring to people like myself where we thought we were exploring it, but maybe we were going down the wrong path, maybe being deceived, who knows? But yeah, just kind of gave me a chuckle. Anyways, let's keep listening.
They have created their own box. Some boxes are much bigger than others. Some boxes are much smaller. And they're exploring within their box, and they think they're open-minded. I run into this everywhere I go. Everybody seems to be exploring within their own self-made box. If all of us wish to be true explorers of consciousness, we have to make a concerted effort to destroy that box. Every belief is a wall. Every belief that you hold, I don't care how endearing it may be, I don't know how old it may be, it doesn't matter. If it's man-made, it's flawed. It's that.
There you go. And I'm going to do my best. I mean, I think we all fall into that category, I'm sure, where we probably think we're fully open-minded, but of course that can't be the case. That's not the case. We can always be more open-minded or do better. But yeah, that really hit home in that one. Okay, now we're going to get to this last little clip, and this one comes back and resonates again with, that interesting David Icke clip that kind of got me going down this entire rabbit hole to begin with, where he talks about this idea that or he hints at it. He doesn't go so deep into it, but this idea that when we leave our bodies after this next life, we may be fooled into thinking that we're in like the highest astral plane there is, and that's where we're at, and that's all there is to explore. And then we decide to come back to Earth and live another reality in this physical realm, etc. Whereas he challenges that idea, or actually says no, but that's not the limitations of consciousness, and there's so many planes and dimensions to explore and go to, but yet we are manipulated in that zone to come back. Again, that resonates with what Bob Monroe was talking about, almost getting addicted to living on this planet, addicted to life, or wanting to try more things over and over. What David Icke was saying is that it's a repetitive cycle. There is a veil or an attempt to convince us that is for the purpose of further growth and learning and development to reincarnate over and over and over. But ultimately, it's not for that reason. There's nothing being learned. Again, I don't know which way I go right now on this. I'm still learning, and that it's all a ruse, and we're not actually learning anything, because every time we come back, our memory is wiped, and we're just here to repeat and go through similar struggles and whatnot for some vibrational energy that is emitted or something like that. Like, again, David Buhlman's not saying this, but I'm saying it ties into that same idea that David Icke brought up that got me going where I'm going now. So let's listen to it. Check it out.
But you have to begin to take it seriously. And I tell people this at the beginning of my workshop. This is not a plaything. I take this seriously. I have fun with it. I do. I try to have as much fun as possible in the workshops. I make light of stuff, and people know that. But I take this seriously. This is the path. This is the path that we are all on. And if we don't, we will end up like billions of people have throughout history. They will make the great transition of death and go from the physical outer world, and they will move that far inward to a consensus reality, or territory, as Bob would say, on the astral. And they'll swear they're in heaven, when there's an entire universe of countless realities and dimensions yet there to explore and experience. But we have to open to this. We have to truly let go and become explorers of consciousness, not just readers of consciousness. And that is the leap, the great leap that we all must take.
You know, if what he's saying is right, then this ultimately is, I guess you could call it, the purpose of life, or the ultimate objective, I guess, from our perspective, to ascend and to open our minds and open our consciousness to this reality, so we can go beyond this little bit that he mentions and then come back and repeat over and over. I think this is what he's alluding to. Obviously, he's not saying explicitly, yes, this is exactly what's happened. We're trapped and we're tricked to reincarnate, and this is a soul trap. You know, he doesn't go as far as David Icke goes, but it sounds along the same lines of logic. And just one thing I want to say about David Icke, if you may or may not have heard of him, I know some people discount him, or maybe had thought that back in the day his theories were off the wall and didn't really give them much credibility because they were so out there, having to do with reptilians and a lot of, I think, things that people, at least back then, weren't ready to even acknowledge or accept as any being true whatsoever. But I think the reason why I even began watching one of his interviews is because I remembered seeing something about him way back in the day, talking about the people in power on this planet and them having links to certain nefarious activities. Let's say, I don't even want to say the word, I think you guys know what I'm talking about, having to do with Mr. Jeffrey. And just all this stuff is coming out, and it appears to be true, at least to some extent, if not 100%. I don't even know the extent of it because they're barely releasing that much information or that much of the files that we still haven't seen yet. So when that started happening, I'm like, what is going on? This guy's been talking about this exact type of behavior and nonsense happening at these upper echelons for decades. And hence I started watching some of his interviews as of late. I haven't been going crazy on them, but I watched a couple of them. And then that's when I stumbled upon this clip, and that led down this rabbit hole and that rabbit hole. And now I'm talking about William Buhlman. And so here we are. So anyways, just to give you a little backstory of how I came down this path. But here we are. And I'm going to try and do exactly what William Buhlman says, acknowledge that everything that we are learning is probably flawed to some extent, if not entirely, I guess is what he's saying. Obviously, we can't say entirely, because then it's like the any pursuit of knowledge would be futile if everything was like totally flawed. But I imagine what he means is there's some level of inaccuracy to everything, and perhaps we have to continue to learn and not get set in one particular dogma as we move forward, and then just not move anymore. I imagine that's the idea. I imagine if he was here right now and I asked him that, he would say, yeah, we're going to do our best. There's always going to be some error, but you're just going to keep trying and learning, and that growth process will kind of continue throughout your life, is what I imagine. So there it is. Very, very fascinating stuff. I'm going to dig deeper into William Buhlman. Man, very, very interesting guy. And some very interesting words here. This speech took place about 12 years ago at the Monroe Institute. I'm just keep coming back to Monroe. It's wild. And it's wild that I'm figuring all this stuff out now, as like I said, I only learned of Monroe Institute about a year ago. And then it just keeps popping. It's just really tripping me out. Anyways, that's where we're at. That's all I got for you guys today. Please, 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 again, let me know in the comments if you have other suggestions for other things that I should look into, or other books I should read, or places I should go to keep digging and keep learning, both for you guys and for myself. I really, really appreciate the participation thus far on this channel. It's small, but man, I feel like we've got some very cool people that have subscribed so far, that are at least watching the content. And if you do want to continue to be a part of the journey and you want to subscribe, please do. I'm going to try to do my absolute best to be making content almost every day, but sometimes it's going to take me a little longer if I need to do a bit more digging to make a longer video, and that will be the case. But this is of the utmost importance to me right now. So please stick around if you're enjoying the journey. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.